Hello. So what you see on the screen is GameStock's price movement. In the last video, when I was tracking GameStop price, it was somewhere around 300 plus 320 or something. Now it is down to 292. That means a drop of over a couple of 100%. So that's a huge drop, isn't it? Yeah, so yeah, it's a huge drop, like about, I think, 70-80% drop, right? So it's back to the normal. It started at what price? I think 60, 50 or 60, and then huge jump towards. So I'm going to at Stern Business School. Um, Somebody who is known for valuating companies and is actually a very famous professor on this particular topic. So let's hear him out what he has to say on this particular topic. And
when I write, I try not to be reactive. So when I want to write about something, I usually let it simmer for a week or two before I put words down, because I know I can sometimes say things that I don't want to say. In this case, though, I'm going to make an exception, and perhaps I will live to regret it. You must be living under a rock if you haven't heard of the GameStop story. In the last couple of weeks, as you know, a group of investors online have gathered together and bought shares in companies like GameStop and AMC and BlackBerry, and in the process, they've driven the hedge funds that have sold short on these stocks almost into oblivion. Now, this story resonates for a lot of different reasons, but one of the reasons, of course, is you have the small players bringing down a big player, a David versus Goliath story. And given how the low esteem in which we hold much of Wall Street, a lot of people are pulling for the Redditors, with the Reddit being the platform where these investors have gathered. It's also, like every other story, become a political story with populist undertones. And one of the few cases where I've seen AOC and Ted Cruz on the same side. They're both pulling for the small investor. Now, there are lots of reasons you could be interested in the story, but I'll make a confession up front. I don't have an axe to grind here. I don't own any of these companies. I'm not a great fan of hedge funds. But I'm interested in what this story means for me as an investor. What does it mean for markets? Because that could affect me as an investor. Before we dive into the GameStop story, I want to kind of lay the foundations, and if this is insulting, please skip through the next couple of minutes. You cannot make head or tail of the story if you don't know what selling short means and what a short squeeze involves. So let's step back. When you typically think of an investment, you tend to think of valuing a company or a stock and finding it trading at a price lower than that value and buying the stock. In Wall Street parlance, you're long that stock. And before you lump all of Wall Street together, remember, much of Wall Street is constrained to be just long. All mutual funds, for instance, are generally long. Hedge funds, and that's what often separates them from mutual funds, can be both long and they can be short. So what is short? Well, let's say you think a stock is too highly priced rather than lowly priced, and you want to take advantage of that high pricing. Here's what you could do. You could borrow shares of the stock from people who own the stock. And of course, when you do that, you've got to contractually get obligated to return the shares at a future point in time. And if you're right and the stock price goes down, you buy the shares at the discounted price, return the shares, and you keep the difference. That's being short. Now, when you think about those two positions, mathematically, there's not much difference, right? All you're doing is reversing the sequence. When you're long, you buy first at a low price and you sell at a higher price. When you're short, you sell first at a higher price and you buy back. Long again. The biggest short squeeze in dollar terms in history happened in 2008 when Volkswagen, the German automobile